So I remember the first time I saw you, I asked you a question about death, and you said it's like a whirlpool, and then it ends and the current continues and mixes and then makes another whirlpool. So what happens if in this life I were to realize infinite consciousness and then just realize it, what people call being enlightened, and then I died, would I be reborn with that, or would I have to restart all over again?
So let me just, for those of you that are not familiar with the whirlpool metaphor, let me just explain that. I borrowed it from my friend Bernardo Castrop, who many of you have read. So in the same way that I sometimes describe mind or experience as the activity of consciousness, in the same way that a movie could be said to be the activity of the screen, in this analogy, the whirlpool is the activity of the river. So the river is the formless reality, and the whirlpool is its temporary activity. So in just the same way that you cannot peel a movie off a screen, in other words, in just the same way that the movie doesn't have a reality of its own, but borrows its reality from the screen, in the same way you cannot pluck a whirlpool out of a river, because there's no thing called a whirlpool. The whirlpool is just the temporary activity, the temporary name and form of the river. But it is a limited form. It is the activity of the whirlpool gives the river a limited name and form. So in this analogy, the whirlpool is Jane, the river is Mary. The whirlpool is each of our finite minds are the activity of infinite consciousness, and each of our finite minds has a particular form to it, just as every whirlpool has a particular form to it. So when the whirlpool disbands, it begins to break up, you imagine that the energy that went into maintaining the vortex of the whirlpool, that energy begins to relax and expand out into the river. So although the whirlpool disappears, that's the body in this analogy, the energies that went into the make of the whirlpool remain, and they dissipate, they ripple out into the river, although they no longer have a form. So remember, under the consciousness-only model, the body is an appearance in the mind, and the essence of the mind is consciousness. So the energies of the mind that give rise to our body, those are the energies that give rise to the whirlpool. The whirlpool disbands, disperses, expands into the river, but the energies, the subliminal energies, the activity of the river continues, although it no longer has a recognizable form. Downstream, as those residual ripples are carried downstream by the flow of the river, they may gather together again and coalesce to form a new whirlpool. And there will be some correspondence between the new whirlpool and the old whirlpool, precisely because the ripples that were left over from the old whirlpool coalesced and formed the new whirlpool. So this is this analogy I originally used to describe how reincarnation could work under the consciousness-only model. So, will you, when your whirlpool, the whirlpool of Alexander, disbands, will you be reborn down the road, as downriver, downstream, as Michael, having to start all over again? No, because the energies of the mind that have gone into the make of your body, as your body disintegrates, will dissipate out into the broad medium, the river of awareness, and those residues, the tendencies, your understanding, anything that is left over, will gather together and form the basis of Alexander II downstream. Or in this case, Alexander VIII downstream, or whatever. So, another way to look at that is when you fall asleep at night, you have a dream, and you dream that you are a different Alexander. Let's say you're Alexander in the waking state, and you dream that you are Alex in your dream. And Alex is a different body from Alexander. The Alex in the dream is a different person from Alexander in the waking state. And the world that Alex knows in the dream is different from your waking state world. In other words, it's a kind of reincarnation. But there is a continuity between your experience in the waking state and the experience you have in the dream. For instance, if you are fearful in the waking state, if you tend to live with a feeling of fear inside you in the waking state, that fear may manifest as a dream of being chased by tigers. So what was on the inside of you in the waking state will become your environment in the dream state. So that is an example of the residue of the waking state going into the make of your experience in your next incarnation. In this case, you just incarnated as a new person in your dream. And that would be another model of the way reincarnation works, not just from this cycle of waking and dreaming that we go through every 24 hours, but a cycle of lifetimes. And it's a model of reincarnation that gives no credence to a separate, independently existing self. And is consistent with the consciousness-only model, and is consistent with our experience that mind doesn't come to an end when the body dies. So, no, everything you realize, everything that you realize in your mind, and the depth of love that you carry in your heart will accompany you downstream. You don't need to worry.
Thank you.